Hi everyone. Have you ever gotten in trouble for doing the right thing? This could be that, maybe it's not even you got in trouble. Maybe people made fun of you for doing the right thing. Maybe all your friends want to cheat on a test and you choose not to. And that's a great thing if that's what you chose, not to cheat. But then you get made fun of because you didn't go along with everyone else. Well, in today's story, we're going to learn what happened to Joseph when he chose not to go along with what people wanted him to do, and he did the right thing. And guess what? He got in big trouble for it because someone lied about it. So Joseph is now in Egypt and he's a slave. And now he's working really hard. He is doing his best to serve his master, Potiphar. And Potiphar is noticing that Joseph is a really hard worker. And it says that the Lord was with Joseph and he's prospering. And even the master sees that this servant, this slave, is prospering and doing really well. And that anything that Potiphar put Joseph in charge of, it worked well. It was abundant. It was blessed. So, if Joseph was put in charge of the garden, guess what? The garden did really well that year. If Joseph was put in charge of the cattle did really well. God was blessing Joseph. Joseph didn't have any magic touch, but God was working through Joseph and blessing him and putting Joseph where he needed him to be. Because even though he was sold into slavery, spoiler alert, God had a plan for him. And so it says that, so eventually Potiphar becomes so pleased with Joseph's work that he puts Joseph in charge of everything. And Joseph is a slave, yet his master is putting him in charge of everything. That's a big deal. And so he says he did not, and the Potiphar didn't have to worry about anything. All he had to do was worry about what food he ate and what clothes he was going to wear. How cool is that he has such trust in Joseph that he could trust him to run and manage everything, and he didn't have to worry about a thing. Now the Bible says that Joseph was really good looking. So good looking that Potiphar's wife starts to take notice of him and thinks he's a pretty good looking guy. And she says, well, come to bed with me. So she's saying, don't worry about my husband, just come spend the night with me. And that's a sin. You're not supposed to do that. If you're married, you're only supposed to, husband and wife, that's the only people you're supposed to spend the night with. Not with some other guy who you think is cute. But she is very captivated by his outward beauty. She said, no one's at home. And she said, the only thing that you aren't allowed to be around is me. Yeah, but come with me. The master will listen to me. Potiphar will listen to me. And she's trying to trick him into this. And he keeps saying, no, no, no. He's standing up against temptation. No, don't bother me with this. And he's very polite about it, but says no. And then one day, he's going around his duties, and no other servants are around. And once again, she starts pestering him. And she gets so annoyed with his continual answers of no, that she actually grabs onto his robe, his cloak, and demands that he obey her. And he says no, and he runs away from her. He runs away. Away from the temptation that she keeps trying to put on him. But he leaves the cloak, the robe, in her hands. So then she decides, because she doesn't want it to get out that she was harassing him, and trying to tempt him. So she holds up this cloak and tells people, look what he's trying to do. He was trying to harm me. But then when I started yelling and screaming, I grabbed his cloak and he ran away for fear he would get in trouble. And so she kept his cloak with her, so when her husband returned home, she told him the same story, that, yeah, he was trying to be mean to me, but I started yelling and screaming and I grabbed his cloak and he ran away and didn't even bother coming back for it. And the Potiphar is angry, and he goes to Joseph and he's like, why? I trusted you. Why are you doing this to me? And he gets so angry that he throws Joseph in prison. And it says that, Joseph did what was right. He ran away from the temptation. But the story, long story short, Potiphar's wife lied. She twisted stuff around, made Joseph look like the bad guy. And so then, Potiphar throws him in prison. But guess what? God was still with Joseph. And even while in prison, Joseph was shown kindness and favor. You know how Potiphar trusted him that he put Joseph in charge of his entire household? Well, guess what? The prison warden, the guy in charge of the prison, put Joseph in charge of the entire prison because he had such confidence and trust in Joseph. And you know how Potiphar kind of was able to just worry about what he was going to eat, what he was going to wear? The prison warden, once Joseph was put in charge of it, because God was blessing Joseph and thus blessing whatever Joseph was doing, the prison warden didn't have to worry about anything because Joseph was taking care of it. And how cool is that? Even in the midst of his trials of being a slave and then being thrown in prison unjustly, God was blessing him and people were noticing, even if he was in prison. He was still being noticed as, God was blessing him and kind of reminding Joseph that, yeah, bad stuff's happening, but I'm still with you. And so our memory verse for today comes from Exodus 20, verse 16. It says, "You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor." It's one of the 10 Commandments. And if you remember our story, that's what Potiphar's wife did. She gave false testimony against Joseph. And now to help us remember, our challenge for this week, and mine's really short, is to make paper chains. I did mine in black so it looks like chains from a prison. And then what you can do is get a white crayon or marker or a colored pencil. And I want you to write, before you put them into the chain, I want you to write down things that when you're tempted, what temptations you have to run from. Maybe it could be cheating, lying, sneaking food, not obeying your parents. Whatever those are, write those temptations on your chains and then hang them up to remember that Joseph ran from temptation, and even though he was wrongly accused and was thrown in prison, he obeyed God. And that's all, what's really what matters in the long run is obeying God, regardless of what happens afterward. I hope you guys have fun answering the discussion questions, memorizing Exodus 20, verse 16, and doing the challenge. As always, I'm doing these right along with you. And remember that the story you heard today is more than a story. It is a true account written in the Bible, which is God's love letter and message to the entire world. And guess what? That includes you. So until next week, bye.